She was only 7, carrying a baby through the streets searching for help, while her mother lay dying in a coma. He was a cold billionaire who believed kindness was weakness. Until their paths crossed. What happened next changed both of their lives forever. Jonathan Reed never believed in charity. To him, the world was black and white. Success was earned, not given. He ruled his empire with iron fists, shutting out anything that smelled like weakness or pity. But that cold world shattered the moment he saw her. A little girl, no more than 7, stumbled through the cold streets, clutching a baby in her arms, the babysitter's child. Her clothes were torn, her feet bleeding, but she didn't cry. She couldn't. Behind her, a hospital loomed. Inside, her mother lay trapped in a coma cylind, motionless, fighting for breath. Jonathan watched from his sleek office window, unaware that this fragile child was about to tear down the walls he built around his heart. Because some miracles come wrapped in the smallest hands, Jonathan couldn't look away. The city buzzed beneath him, but all he saw was that little girl struggling against the world. He had everything money could buy: power, respect, luxury, but none of it mattered now. The hardened man who dismissed charity as weakness felt something stir deep inside. A strange, unfamiliar ache. That night, Jonathan's thoughts refused to rest. Who was she? Why was she carrying that baby through the cold and danger? How had life dealt her such a cruel hand? Meanwhile, Amara's journey was far from over. The streets grew darker, and the faces more suspicious. No one stopped to help. The baby stirred, crying softly, and Amara tightened her grip, whispering, "Hold on. Please, hold on." Days earlier, her world had collapsed. Her mother, the pillar of their small family, had fallen into a coma after a terrible accident. The babysitter, overwhelmed and scared, had left the child with Amara, trusting the little girl's courage. But courage alone couldn't protect them. Jonathan decided he couldn't just watch. The next morning, he stepped out of his glass tower, determined to find the girl who haunted his thoughts. His search led him to a run-down hospital on the city's edge, the very place Amara's mother lay in silence. There, he saw her again, the girl with fierce eyes and a heart too heavy for her years. But just as Jonathan reached out to help, something unexpected happened. A man appeared, sharp-eyed and clearly dangerous. He stepped between them, warning Jonathan to stay away. "This girl's trouble," the man growled. "You don't want to get involved." Jonathan's pride flared. He wasn't used to being told no. But as he looked into Amara's tired eyes, he knew this wasn't just a girl in need. There was more to her. Something hidden beneath the surface. And if he wanted to help, he'd have to uncover secrets that many wanted to keep buried. Jonathan's mind raced. Who was this man? Why was he so protective, or was it something darker? Ignoring the warning, Jonathan stepped forward. "I'm here to help," he said firmly. The man sneered, but before he could respond, Amara suddenly spoke, her voice barely a whisper but steady. "Please, help my mother." Her words cracked something open inside Jonathan, a crack that grew into a resolve he couldn't ignore. But the danger was real. The man's eyes flicked nervously toward the hospital doors, as if afraid someone might be watching. Jonathan realized this wasn't just about a sick mother or a brave little girl. There were secrets tied to power, betrayal, and perhaps even danger that threatened them all. As the sun set, Jonathan made a choice. He would protect Amara and her family, but to do that, he'd have to confront shadows from his own, past shadows darker than he ever imagined. That night, as Jonathan drove back to his mansion, his mind refused to rest. The man's warning echoed in his ears. This girl's trouble. Curiosity gnawed at him. What kind of trouble could a 7-year-old bring? The next morning, unable to shake the feeling, Jonathan returned to the hospital. This time, he spoke to the nurse on duty. "She's not just a patient," the nurse whispered, glancing nervously around. "Her family. There's been problems. Someone powerful wants them gone." Jonathan's heart pounded. Was this why the man had been so threatening? Determined, he asked to see the mother's medical records. That's when he saw reports missing, documents altered. Someone was hiding the truth. Suddenly, a call came through Jonathan's phone, a message. Stop asking questions, or you'll regret it. Fear surged through him. The stakes were higher than he thought. And now, protecting Amara wasn't just an act of kindness, it was a fight for survival. Jonathan's hand trembled as he read the warning on his phone. Someone was watching him. Someone who wanted this story buried fast. But he couldn't turn away now, not when Amara's face haunted his every thought. That afternoon, he returned to the neighborhood where Amara lived. The streets were quieter, shadows longer. He noticed how people quickly looked away when he passed a silent fear hanging in the air. He found Amara sitting on the cracked steps outside a small, worn-down house. Her eyes, tired but defiant, met his. "Why are they trying to scare me?" she asked softly. Jonathan knelt beside her. "Because you know something they don't want anyone to find out." She nodded, clutching the baby tighter. "Tell me everything," Jonathan urged. With a deep breath, Amara revealed the secret her mother had kept hidden known that tied powerful people to the accident that left her in a coma, and to the threats shadowing her family now. Jonathan realized this was no ordinary rescue. This was a battle against a dark force that reached far beyond them both. And if they weren't careful, they'd both be swallowed whole. Jonathan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Amara's words. The secret was bigger than he'd imagined, tangled in lies, greed, and betrayal. Determined, he vowed to protect her and expose the truth. But as night fell, he knew the danger was closing in. That same evening, a shadow moved silently outside Amara's home. The man who had warned Jonathan before was watching, waiting. Jonathan sensed the threat but refused to back down. He called his most trusted security team and prepared to fight for the little girl's future. Because sometimes, the coldest hearts can be thawed by the smallest acts of courage. And this was just the beginning. The night air was thick with tension. Jonathan's security team discreetly surrounded Amara's home, lights dimmed but eyes sharp. Inside, Amara clutched the baby close, whispering prayers. Jonathan stood by the window, heart pounding as shadows moved just beyond the yard. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the silence. The threatening man and his accomplices stormed in, intent clear in their cold eyes. Jonathan moved fast, commanding, protective. A fierce fight broke out, desperation and fear clashing in the darkness. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Amara's mother's monitor beeped steadily, a sign she was still fighting to come back. Jonathan knew that saving Amara and exposing the truth was the only hope for them all. The night ended with sirens wailing, the attackers fleeing into the shadows, and a fragile victory born from bravery and love. Just when it seemed the worst was over, Jonathan received a cryptic message. "You've only seen the surface. The real danger is still coming." Amara's family began receiving strange shadowy figures watching from afar, whispers in the night. Someone powerful was still pulling strings, unwilling to let the truth come out. Jonathan realized that protecting Amara and her mother was only the beginning of a much larger battle that would test their courage, loyalty, and trust like never before. And in the shadows, a secret waited one that could change everything they thought they knew. Jonathan's phone buzzed again, another anonymous message, colder and more threatening. "The children belong to forces greater than you understand. Stay away or be consumed." Determined to protect Amara, Jonathan dug deeper and uncovered a chilling truth. The danger wasn't just outside, it was within her own family. Amara's uncle, a man shrouded in darkness and secrecy, had been orchestrating the attacks all along. A ruthless occultist, he believed the children held a power he needed for his sinister rituals. He had purposely run over their mother, knowing she was the only one strong enough to protect her children. Now, with the mother weakened and fighting for her life, the uncle was closing in his shadow, stretching over everything they held dear. Jonathan knew this fight would be unlike any other. To save Amara and the baby, he would have to confront not just mortal danger, but a darkness far older and more terrifying. That same night, he made a decision to get Amara and the baby out. By morning, a black SUV was waiting outside the hospital. Amara's mother had been stabilized enough to be moved, and under the radar, Jonathan arranged for them to be relocated to a private hospital in another city secure, anonymous, and far from the uncle's reach. Within 48 hours, Jonathan had rented a modest but safe apartment in a gated estate. It wasn't a mansion, but it was peaceful, surrounded by quiet streets, watchful neighbors, and security guards who asked questions. Amara looked around the new space in awe. "Is this our new home?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder and fear. Jonathan nodded. "Just for now, until it's safe." Her mother, still weak, whispered, "Why are you doing this for us?" He paused, looking at the two children, then at her. "Because someone should have, a long time ago." But while they settled into the new place, Jonathan prepared for war. He knew Amara's uncle wouldn't stop. And this time, Jonathan wouldn't just protect. He would confront the darkness head-on and end it. Jonathan spent the next days gathering every bit of information he could about Amara's uncle. He hired private investigators, scoured old records, and connected with people from the shadows, those who whispered about the occult man's dark deeds but feared speaking openly. The deeper Jonathan dug, the darker the truth became. Amara's uncle was not just involved in sinister rituals. He held influence over powerful people in the city. His reach was vast, and his cruelty legendary. Back in the apartment, Amara grew stronger each day, her mother slowly recovering under careful medical watch, but the weight of their situation pressed heavily on her young shoulders. One night, Jonathan sat down with Amara and her mother. "We're not just fighting to keep you safe," he said quietly. "We're fighting to stop a man who believes your family is a tool." Amara's eyes flashed with determination. "I won't let him hurt us anymore." Jonathan smiled, a flicker of hope breaking through his usually guarded demeanor. "Good, because soon he'll come for us, and we have to be ready." It started with a whisper. A neighbor at the new apartment had noticed a strange man loitering near the gate. He wasn't from around there. He wasn't asking questions, he was watching. Jonathan's team picked it up quickly. The uncle had found them. Instead of running, Jonathan decided, it ends tonight. He staged the apartment, moved Amara, her mother, and the baby to a safe house, left the lights on, the door half-closed bait. Then he waited. Just past midnight, the front door creaked. A shadow slipped inside. Tall, confident, evil wrapped in flesh. Amara's uncle. He moved like a man who had done this before, heading straight toward the back room, the one where the children would have been. But instead, Jonathan stepped out from the shadows. "I've been expecting you," he said coldly. The uncle froze, then laughed. "You really think you can stop me, boy? You've no idea what I serve." Jonathan didn't flinch. "I don't care who you serve. You won't touch them again." The uncle reached into his coat. Jonathan reached faster. A fight broke out, brutal, fast, and fueled by fury. The uncle was skilled, but Jonathan fought like a man protecting something sacred. When the police stormed in, already called by Jonathan's men, they found the uncle bloodied, defeated, and screaming curses about powers that would rise for vengeance. But it was over. Or so Jonathan thought. As the handcuffs clicked, and the man was dragged out, a phone dropped from his pocket, still recording. And on the screen was a video. A familiar face. One of Jonathan's closest business partners who has been feeding Amara's uncle with information. Smiling, shaking hands with the uncle. The betrayal ran deeper than he ever imagined. At the station, Amara's uncle sat slumped in the interrogation room, blood dried on his lip, his pride shattered. The officers had no patience for monsters like him. He was silent at first, smirking, defiant. But that changed when they played the footage from his phone, his own face caught red-handed with dark threats, the failed attack, and the names of his contacts. The mask slipped, and, under pressure, rage took over. "You think this is over?" he spat. "She ruined everything. That woman, she was supposed to be mine." The lead detective leaned forward. "Start talking." And so he did. He confessed everything. How he had once loved Amara's mother deeply, obsessively. How she refused his advances and married his younger brother instead. "How do you think he died?" the uncle sneered. "Car accident? That was me. I killed him. My own blood." The room fell silent. He admitted it all, the jealousy, the obsession, the ritual plans. He tried to control her after her husband's death, but she always protected the children. That's when he vowed, "If I couldn't have her, I'd destroy everything she loved." The baby was the final piece of a ritual he had waited years to complete. But now, all that power meant nothing. He was dragged into court, the courtroom packed, the evidence overwhelming. Amara and her mother watched from a quiet corner, hand in hand. The judge didn't blink. "For the murder of your brother, attempted harm against minors, conspiracy, and ritual crimes, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without parole." But Jonathan couldn't shake the bond he had built with Amara. Her strength, her kindness, her courage. It had changed him. He wanted to give her more than protection. He wanted to give her a permanent place in his heart. One evening, as the orange glow of sunset painted the living room walls, Jonathan turned to Amara's mother. "I want to adopt Amara," he said, voice trembling with emotion. "I want to take her home, give her the future she deserves, if that's okay with you." Amara's mother smiled not just with her lips, but with the full weight of her soul. "You've done more than anyone ever could," she said, holding back tears. "If there's one man in this world I trust with her, it's you. But please, let us visit sometimes. Let her baby sister grow up knowing her." Jonathan nodded. "Of course. You'll always be her family. Always." That night, he sat down with Amara, who was playing quietly with her sister. He got down on one knee beside her. "Amara," he said, voice cracking, "would you mind going home with me? I want to become your father, from today onward." Amara's eyes welled with tears. She looked at her baby sister, crawled toward her, and held her tiny hand gently. "I'll go with you, sir," she said softly. "But I'll miss my baby sister. We've been through a lot together." Jonathan couldn't hold back anymore. Tears streamed down his face as he pulled Amara into a warm, trembling hug. The next morning, they packed Amara's few belongings, her little shoes, her favorite dress, the picture she had drawn of her family. Jonathan held her hand as they walked to his waiting car. Amara looked back once at the window where her mother and sister waved with proud, tearful smiles, and then forward, toward a new life. A home not made of glass and steel, but of trust, healing, and love. 12 years later, Amara stood tall and radiant in her graduation gown, a stethoscope now draped proudly around her neck. From the frightened little girl with bare feet and a baby in her arms, she had become Dr. Amara Reed, one of the top graduating surgeons in the country. Jonathan had made it all possible. And today, she was coming home to celebrate with arms full of wrapped gifts, flowers, and a framed portrait of the man who had raised her like his own. The words printed across it read, "You are more than a father to me, Mr. Jonathan, and if I had a choice in the next world, I'd still choose you." She smiled, imagining his reaction, already picturing his eyes misting up and his usual proud silence. But when she reached the house, something felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Then a neighbor rushed toward her. "Dr. Amare, her father. He's in the hospital. He collapsed this morning." The gifts fell from her hands. Her heart stopped. She raced to the hospital, coat still clinging to her shoulders, fear pounding louder than her steps. And there he was, Jonathan, lying weak on a hospital bed, pale, his once strong frame now frail. "Dad," she cried, rushing to his side. "What happened to you? I brought you gifts, Dad. I wanted to surprise you. Please, let's go home." Jonathan opened his eyes slowly, a tired smile curling on his lips when he saw her. He reached out with a trembling hand and held hers. "Baby girl, I'm proud of you. So proud," he whispered. "But I need you to be strong for what I'm going to say." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes. "Please, don't," he exhaled shakily. "I've been diagnosed with kidney failure. One of my kidneys has shut down." Amara's body collapsed to the floor beside the bed, her cries tearing through the silence. No, not you, Dad. You're the strongest man I know. You can't be sick. You just can't." She wailed bitterly, clinging to his arm, shaking her head. And Jonathan, despite the pain, gently stroked her hair. "You're a doctor now," he said softly, "and I've never been more proud. But maybe This is your first true battle." The next morning, before the sun even rose, Amara walked into the doctor's office, her eyes puffy from crying, but her voice steady. "Doctor, please. I want to donate my kidney. I don't need to think about it. I want my father to live." The doctor stared at her, shocked, moved. "Dr. Amara, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Within days, tests were run, matches confirmed, and the surgery was scheduled. The operation was a success. Both Jonathan and Amara recovered well. 2 weeks later, they were discharged, a little weaker in body, but stronger than ever in spirit. But there was one person who hadn't known the depth of everything that had happened to Amara's mother. She still believed her daughter was simply coming home from graduation. So, one quiet morning, Jonathan picked up the phone and called her. "Please come over," he said warmly, "and bring your daughter." Amara's mother dressed up in her best wrapper and blouse, her now 12-year-old daughter skipping excitedly beside her. They arrived at the apartment not knowing what awaited. As soon as the door opened, Amara ran out in tears, threw her arms around her mother, and then knelt to hug her baby sister tightly, kissing her forehead again and again. "I've missed you so much," she whispered, holding her like she never wanted to let go. Then, smiling through her tears, Amara disappeared inside for a moment and came back with boxes full of gift toys, books, shoes, a custom backpack embroidered with her sister's name. But just as she started to hand them over, Jonathan spoke softly from across the room. "Amara, darling, there won't be any need for that." She turned to look at him, confused. Jonathan stepped forward, put his arm around her shoulders and said, "Because from today henceforth they will be living with us. This is their home now." There was silence. Then, Amara slowly walked behind her father, wrapped her arms around him from the back, and laid her head gently against him. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered. "I love you so much." And in that moment, the house wasn't just a house anymore. It was a home full of love, second chances, and the kind of family that doesn't come from blood alone, but from the heart. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was warm but curious. Jonathan had asked Amara, her mother, and the now lively 12-year-old to join him in the sitting room. His lawyer sat beside him, files neatly stacked on the table. Jonathan adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat, and looked at the 3 women who had brought light into his once lonely life. "I called this meeting today," he began, his voice calm but thick with emotion, "because I have something important to share." He paused, then continued. "You may not know this, but I am an orphan. No parents, no siblings. For years, I lived in the coldness of wealth with no warmth, no real family. But then, I found you." His eyes glistened with tears. "You didn't just come into my house. You came into my heart. You gave me purpose, laughter, healing, love." He turned to the lawyer and gave a small nod. "Which is why," he continued, "I've decided to will everything I own to you." Amara gasped, covering her mouth. Her mother sat frozen in disbelief. "My estates, my companies, my investments, they are now in your names, divided fairly. Amara, you'll handle the hospital branch I once managed. And your mother, she will have full ownership over the family properties." The lawyer handed over the documents as Jonathan stood up again. "And one more thing," he said, walking over to Amara's mother with a soft smile. "If I've learned anything, it's that love is worth fighting for, even late in life." He took her hand gently. "So, I've arranged a court wedding. I'd like you to officially be my wife, and the queen of everything we've built together." Tears fell freely. Amara's mother nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude and joy. They signed the documents that day, not just as legal formality, but as the sealing of a bond fate had written in struggle, sacrifice, and deep love. From that day forward, the house wasn't just full of people, it was full of warmth, celebration, and peace. Amara continued her career, saving lives. Her mother, now Mrs. Reed, managed the home and guided others with the grace of someone who had seen darkness and survived. The youngest daughter bloomed with laughter, growing in a world once unimaginable. And Jonathan, once a lonely billionaire, now sat every evening surrounded by a family he didn't find by blood, but by love. The end.